So with us now, Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby. Sir, thank you for your time. We got a number of questions. Let's get right to them. There has been a lot of curiosity about this convoy. If it moves, do you believe the Ukrainian military has the ability to take it out?
Well, the fact is, Bill, it hasn't been moving, and that's in large part due to the Ukrainian armed forces and their ability to continue to hit that convoy and keep it from going anywhere. We think it's largely about for resupply purposes for their advance on Kyiv. It's not perfectly clear about what every vehicle in that convoy is doing, but the Ukrainians have put up a very stiff resistance and helped prevent the Russians from overcoming their own fuel and food and sustainment problems.
This call for a no-fly zone or a partial no-fly zone that has continued. But one of the creative ideas was to figure out a way to get the Polish MiGs into Ukraine. Is there a holdup there, or will that happen soon, as even early as today?
No, there's no holdup, Dana. I mean, I think there's discussions going on about this idea, this proposal, but really it's up to Poland or any other nation that might want to give aircraft to the Ukrainians. That's a decision that they can make and they should make. We respect that. Whether there's a backfill from the United States, well, again, that's something that's being explored, but no decision yet and no timeline set for that kind of a decision.
It would appear that we do not have the surplus of F-16s that maybe a lot of people think we do. Is that the case?
There's a lot going on here, Bill. I mean, clearly our inventory is one of them, making sure that we can preserve our own combat readiness before we give additional aircraft to another military. There's also a lot of other logistical concerns that have to be worked out here. But again, this is just an idea. It's not clear that Poland or any other nation is willing to make that step in terms of giving MiG aircraft to the Ukrainians. And so we're just sort of exploring it right now.
How cynical is it for the Russians to suggest civilian corridors for safe passage that go directly back to Russia or Belarus?
I think you can all understand why the Ukrainians are bristling at this notion that the only humanitarian corridors offered to them put them in Russia or Belarus, in the aggressor states. So it's perfectly understandable that the Ukrainians are bristling at that. They deserve, first of all, they deserve to not be invaded. There shouldn't be this violence perpetrated on them and their cities, their families, their friends. But short of that, you would expect, and they should expect, that the Russians will allow humanitarian evacuations to other places inside Ukraine in their country.
Emmanuel Macron, the leader of France, has had some ongoing discussions with Vladimir Putin, one of the few. His quote as of today was, "Discussions with President Putin are difficult because today he refuses a ceasefire," end quote. Do you believe that there is any way to reverse that, or is the intent to take over the entire country?
Well, we haven't seen any change in Mr. Putin's approach here to try to topple the government in Kyiv and to assume control, some occupying control over Ukraine. That continues to be what we see just watching it ourselves, what is his intent here. Now, we would obviously encourage a diplomatic path forward. You've seen Secretary Blinken in the region, including today. In fact, he's going to France today to try to encourage some sort of diplomatic path forward. There's still that option available to Mr. Putin. It's not really clear that he's very serious about trying to pursue that because, again, what we're seeing on the ground is increased bombardment, increased what we call long-range fires and violence visited upon these cities in Ukraine, all major population centers, Bill, which, again, makes it even more clear that what he's trying to do is occupy.
Across the Potomac River today, from where you are at the Capitol, there is a hearing that is taking place. I think they just got underway to talk about global threats to the United States. This is a hearing that they have annually so that there can be analysis. You're seeing that hearing there, and this is Adam Schiff that is at that hearing. So a question, though, is emerging from a lot of people as we think about what just happened in the last 13 days and how everything feels more dire and more worrisome. And here's something from the Wall Street Journal about rebuilding U.S. defenses after Ukraine, saying that Biden needs to pivot to meet growing threats, as Jimmy Carter did, that one reason the U.S. is struggling to deter bad behavior is that adversaries know American military power is in retreat. The Biden team has been pushing a divest to invest strategy that skimps on weapons to develop technology for the 2030s, a plan that now belongs in a Pentagon paper shredder. Is the Pentagon going to be open to calls for more funding in order to deal with the global threats that are emerging?
I got to tell you, we just take a fundamental issue with that whole argument. I mean, if you just look at the budget that the president submitted last year, you can see that we are actually investing in new technology, new weapons capabilities, new operational concepts. The Pentagon itself is putting the finishing touches on our national defense strategy, which you will see focuses very, very chiefly on the challenge raised by China, our #1 pacing challenge, as well as the challenge that we see from other major nation states like Russia, North Korea, Iran. There's a lot of effort being done here at the Pentagon to invest in capabilities and concepts that get us on a better, firmer footing to deal with these more modern nation-state-like threats, and we're doing that now.
So the Pentagon's position is that it doesn't need any more resources?
Well, look, of course, we're always going to be wanting to talk to Congress about resources, Dana, and I'm not going to get ahead of the FY23 budget discussion or what that's going to look like. But of course, we're always honest with Congress about the resources that we need, and we certainly take inputs from our field commanders and our service chiefs about that. Obviously, defending this nation does require a lot of resources, and we're going to continue to pursue those resources. It's not just about the dollars; it's about the capabilities that those dollars can buy to make sure that we're ready for those kinds of threats.
A number of other headlines to get to in the moment we have left here. There are more U.S. military assets going to Eastern Europe. That's significant. We'll see how that works out. It appears, sir, that Putin's army is not big enough to occupy a country the size of France, or for that matter, the size of the state of Texas. And then you wonder that ultimately, what's the intent here? Just coming back to a previous question of mine here. Is it the belief of the Pentagon that he thought this could be a quick strike into the airport, and then he moved to the southeast and take the capital city? And that convoy you see assembled, you know, for 40 miles really wasn't a 40-mile convoy. It's various groups that have bumped into each other, literally running into each other on the road. So that leaves the theory that take the airport, move the supply convoy in behind it, and then go after the capital city, or perhaps maybe even in the same order. Is that the common thought when you look back 13 days ago now, sir?
Well, again, we don't have perfect visibility into Mr. Putin's military planning, but clearly he wants to make a move on Kyiv. He's actually approaching on 3 lines of major access in Ukraine. He's kind of divided his forces, if you will. He's coming up from the south, he's coming in from the northeast, and of course down towards the north, towards Kyiv. Kyiv seems to be the main effort in his mind. What we know, or what we assess, Bill, is that Mr. Putin did not adequately plan for Ukrainian resistance to be this stiff, this determined, this well-armed and this capable, not only from the Ukrainian armed forces, but from Ukrainian citizens themselves. We don't believe he assessed for that. We also don't believe that he properly planned for his own logistics and sustainment. You're talking about this convoy. It's not clear that that they properly planned and executed for fuel and for food and for ammunition. So he's running into problems not only by the Ukrainians, but problems of his own making.
Okay, no, one last question. Why would we sign a security agreement back in November, not give Ukraine the weapons to defend itself? In some ways, that's a political question. It may take a political answer, but how would you address that, sir?
No, look, I mean, we have been talking to the Ukrainians for quite some time here, Bill, about what their needs were, both from a lethal and a non-lethal perspective. And I can tell you that the president has been 100% committed, certainly in the last few months, to getting them as much security assistance as possible. Bill, he just about a week ago signed $350 million security package for Ukraine.
But that was after that was after the country was invaded.
It is almost all in place. And according to Ukrainian officials, including those who have spoken to Secretary Austin, they're getting this stuff and they're using it in the field. It's actually becoming very, very effective at pushing back on this Russian advance. So we're 100% dedicated to getting them the support they need and to do it faster than we've ever done it before.
Okay, more questions to come. Sir, thank you for your time today.